Russia and Ukraine are increasingly skeptical of the possibility of resuming U.S.-brokered peace talks even after the Middle East crisis ends, the Financial Times reports, citing sources familiar with both sides' positions. According to the publication, Vladimir Putin is banking on further advances by Russian troops and intends to expand his demands after potentially establishing control over the entire territory of Donbas. Sources claim that the Russian leadership is hoping to secure further territorial concessions from a stronger position. Kyiv, meanwhile, believes that Ukraine has become less vulnerable to pressure from Washington to quickly conclude an unfavorable agreement. Ukrainian officials believe the situation on the front has stabilized, and long-range drone strikes on Russian territory have strengthened Kyiv's position. Despite Donald Trump's claims that the parties are supposedly getting ever closer to a deal, FT sources claim that neither Moscow nor Kyiv sees any point in continuing the current negotiating format. Ukrainian representatives stated that the negotiation process had effectively stalled back in February after yet another round of contacts with Russia. Kyiv is also dissatisfied with what they believe is the U.S.'s failure to compel Moscow to soften its demands. The American side has failed to achieve any progress from Russia, the FT quotes one Ukrainian official as saying. At the same time, both Putin and Zelensky continue to publicly support U.S. participation in the diplomatic process, trying to maintain Trump's interest in the topic of war. The publication also reports that the Russian president rejected offers of European mediation and did not support the idea of holding the summit on neutral territory. Putin had previously unexpectedly mentioned former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder as a possible European negotiator, sparking a sharp reaction in the EU and Ukraine. European Union Foreign Minister Kaja Kallas stated that allowing Moscow to choose Europe's representative would be unwise. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha also criticized the idea. According to the FT, Russian military leaders are convincing Putin that the army will be able to establish control over Donbas by autumn. After that, the Kremlin, sources claim, intends to raise the price of any potential ceasefire. At the same time, the publication's sources note that a real Russian breakthrough on the front line currently appears unlikely. The pace of advance remains slow, and Ukraine continues to target Russian logistics, warehouses, and military infrastructure deep in the rear. Some FT sources claim that the Kremlin's long-term goals may extend far beyond Donbas and include attempts to strengthen control over southern Ukraine, including Odessa, as well as maintaining pressure on Kyiv. Kremlin press secretary Dmitry Peskov stated that for full-scale peace talks between Ukraine and Russia to begin, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky must order the Ukrainian armed forces to leave the territory of Russian regions. He was quoted by Russian media. For a ceasefire to occur and a corridor to full-scale peace negotiations to open, as the president stated in June of the year before last, speaking to the leadership of the Russian Foreign Ministry, President Zelensky must order the Ukrainian armed forces to cease fire and leave the territory of Donbas, leave the territory of the Russian regions, the press secretary said. According to him, at that moment, a ceasefire will begin, and the parties will be able to calmly engage in negotiations. He emphasized, however, that these negotiations will inevitably be very complex and will contain a large number of important details. Regarding contacts, we continue our dialogue with the Americans through existing channels. These contacts are ongoing. And since they act as intermediaries, they also exchange information with the Ukrainian side, Peskov noted. When asked by a journalist whether the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions were included in the concept of Russian regions, Peskov replied, "I recommend that you reread President Putin's statement to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs." Ukraine says that for the past 5 months it has killed or wounded more Russian soldiers than are being recruited. Though the figures are hard to verify, Ukraine bases its statistics on combat footage. It said its military had killed or wounded about 35,000 Russian soldiers a month in March and April, overwhelmingly from drone strikes. Russian recruitment levels, meanwhile, have dipped to about 800 to 1,000 a day in 2026 according to the economist Janis Kluga, based on an analysis of regional budget data. That would be in line with statements from the former President Dmitry Medvedev, head of Russia's recruitment commission, who said more than 80,000 had signed up in the first quarter. There is also no immediate sign that Putin has the appetite to launch a second public mobilization, after the social unrest caused by the first in September 2022. At first, after Ukraine was invaded, it was heavily reliant on Western military equipment and training. Once, Kyiv placed heavy hopes on Western F-16 fighters to try to achieve a breakthrough, and on U.S. Patriot air defense systems to protect its skies. Gradually, it became clear that Western stockpiles were running short, prompting Ukraine to invest more in its own know-how and equipment. Success has been demonstrated by the deep strikes on Russian oil infrastructure, which include 3 drone attacks in the past fortnight on a refinery in Perm, 930 miles from the front line. The arrival of cheap interceptors on the front line in early spring has given Ukraine fresh hope it can knock out all but the faster Russian missiles as Patriot missile stocks become scarce. Ukraine said its interceptors, including Sting from Wild Hornets, shot down 33,000 drones during March, double the month before. It has begun to export the technology to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, all countries attacked by Iran in the spring. Russia even feared Ukraine could target its Red Square victory parade over the weekend, prompting Zelensky to issue a decree saying he would allow the event to proceed. Russia's main effort has, for some time, been diplomatic. Putin hopes that he can persuade Trump to force Zelensky into giving up the rest of Donetsk, to make up for stalling frontline progress. It was this offer that Putin made at the Alaska summit in August and, while the US considered it, Trump did not force it on Ukraine. Despite Putin's comments at the weekend, and a suggestion that he could work with the former German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder as a mediator, there is no sign that Russia's maximalist demands have eased. Last week, Yuri Ushakov, a key Kremlin aide, said peace talks could not start until Ukraine withdrew from all of Donetsk. Trump has been distracted by the Iran crisis, but Putin may be hoping to re-engage the White House with fresh language, if nothing else.